Hi, and welcome to another episode of Garmology, a podcast about stuff, or this week, actually, piles and piles of stuff, with my return guest, Wendy Ward from Sheffield. How are you doing, Wendy?
Hi Nick, I'm okay, thanks. Sitting here in gloomy Sheffield, sitting under a thick layer of fog today. So, yeah, other than that, I'm fine.
Pretty much the same here, foggy and rainy, and all the snow that cheered things up a bit has now turned to ice, and time to stay inside, really.
Yes, so
Now,
perfect activity for us for a Sunday afternoon.
quite. Now, I thought we'd start things off with just having a couple of brief follow-ups on how things are going on your end of things.
Yeah.
Now, initially, I was going to sneakily now look up when we last spoke, but it must be, is it a year ago, maybe a little less?
I reckon it must have been around May time last year because I think you first got in touch with me after that infamous Guardian article.
That was.
Yeah, yeah.
And you became the talk of the nation, at least in certain circles and for a short period of time. Now, that was when you wanted to return your waste garments back to the manufacturers, accompanied by a letter explaining just why you wanted to return it. How has that proceeded, worked out?
Well, I'll give you three guesses to see if you can guess how that's going.
It's an uphill struggle, and you're not getting any replies from the makers. Who
How
could have
did you
seen that
guess?
coming? Well, I think it's kind of obvious that people who have made all the rubbish that is currently choking up the landfills are not likely to really want to take responsibility for what they've made.
Yeah, yeah. Although, yeah, it's quite. I feel like it's stalled a little bit with me because I really want to make sure that I do a lot more digging and make sure I kind of have all the facts and that, I'm kind of moving forward with as accurate knowledge as I can gather. And that in itself is proving quite difficult.
In
Because Sainsbury's pointed me to the fact that they do provide a lot of textile clothing collection banks in their supermarket car parks, um, which they do. And there is information on their website that explains that I think they work with Oxfam on those. And yeah, how much about this shall I tell you? Because it's almost like I feel like I've opened up another huge can of worms, really. Um,
I think I know where this is going as well. But yeah,
because I have my suspicions about what happens to a lot of the stuff that goes in them textile collection banks now, having um, tried to inform myself over the past year a bit more about this whole kind of uh, waste clothing, end of life clothing, uh, kind of part of the fashion industry, because it is still part of the fashion industry. And it's incredibly complex, just like the beginning of the whole kind of clothing cycle when clothes are made. It's seen, and that can be kind of quite muddy, and it can be quite difficult to find out where things are made and who's involved and what happens. And because there are so many people involved, it can be quite difficult to get to actual facts, although hopefully labeling might be starting to get around that, but that's another subject. But yeah, at the end of life, it seems to be equally as complicated and lots of people involved. And yeah, another can of worms at the end. So that's what at the moment has kind of stalled my own personal action with the take it back kind of movement, if you want to call it that. So yeah.
So what you're trying to find out is exactly what might happen to the things you put in their collection boxes in the car park.
Yeah. And the word recycle is thrown around a lot. And when you look at the actual figures on that, so I think it was a RAP report. Was it RAP in 2024? There was a report on kind of the whole system, and basically, if we're lucky, maybe 1% of post-consumer textiles are actually recycled. When we're talking about recycling being breaking down an object into its kind of constituent parts and then reusing the constituent parts to make something else, be that the same sort of thing as in another textile or something else. So yeah, 1% is not a lot considering how much I keep seeing that word recycling being used.
Do you think it's intentionally being vague and misused
Yeah.
and just bandied about, or that they actually believe it? I noticed you just dove right in there, and because I'm wondering if some of the people writing this stuff are they just really don't know. It's like they're just some artificial intelligence writing out some text, blah blah blah.
Well, I don't know. You would like to think, or I would like to think that big brands, big supermarkets, well-known charities would have a clear understanding of what
I
recycling.
mean, from an academic point of view, or me as an engineer, I mean, it is a very precise expression.
Mm,
If we use that word, we do have a proper intent with it. We don't
mm.
mean something vague, or
Yeah,
recycle does mean recycle.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I mean, just looking at the numbers, it seems to me that basically recycling is being used to describe textiles that are being exported to other countries. So basically, offloading our waste elsewhere. To
No,
me, that is not recycling.
no.
Um,
That's repatriating, rehousing, uh,
Waste
something.
colonialism, I think, is the yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I suppose I should caveat a lot of that by saying I have no actual solid um, proof evidence. These a lot of these things are my sort of bugbears and sort of suspicions and ponderings and wonderings about what is actually happening to a lot of these waste clothes, which is kind of what they are, which is quite sad, really, isn't it? Is clothes that have become waste after, you know, perhaps only a short, useful life. But again, we don't know for certain. So,
I think we are being a little bit charitable and maybe a little bit naive when we are sort of opening up the possibility that these people are actually being honest about what they're doing, or sort of accepting of what they say. I mean, it's just a suspicion, but just the way the word sustainability is being bandied around all over the place
yeah,
now, a word completely void of any meaning now,
yeah, exactly.
but always used to sort of promote brands and makers as something wonderfully good without backing it up.
Yeah, and it's just it's such a broad term, and it covers so many things that yeah, it is easy for people if they want to misuse it because there aren't really many accepted definitions, and like I said, it just covers so much, doesn't it? It includes raw materials and where they come from and how they're produced, turning that into fabric and how that's done, and the processes involved, and the water involved, and potential pollution to water, and where the energy comes from to power the factories, and how the people are treated in the factories, and then producing clothes, and how they're moved around the world, and how they're sold to people, and how they're used by all of us, and then what we do when we finish with them. It's just like this gigantic, enormous system. And how can one word be possibly used to define and describe best practice in all of that?
The Wikipedia entry for sustainability is ridiculous now.
Is it? Do you know what? I should have looked at that. I haven't actually.
And I think many people who look at it, they sort of think that, well, if we can just select a few of these elements, then we can say we're sustainable. But no one could really do everything, which is why it's so meaningless. So yes.
So a positive start.
we'll sort of make a quick swerve there because we've got a lot to get through. Your usage marking on your clothes, that's maybe been more successful or more widely seen?
Yeah, and whenever I talk about that, I get a lot of positive engagement about that. So that I'm very, despite the bit of conversation we've just had, and I do believe that is definitely a part of or what I'm about and what I'm interested in. I do think we need to try and inject positivity into the whole kind of conversation about how we use clothes and what clothes mean and how we treat clothes. So so my kind of wearing tally, where I make a stitch into each of my clothes each day that they're worn, feels like a much more positive response to a gigantic, disheartening, kind of overwhelming problem that one person can't solve. But yeah, that action makes me feel kind of accountable and like I'm making a small difference, doing a small kind of action, a small bit of shouting, and maybe a kind of quiet shouting in a sort of positive way. So it's kind of a celebration of use, basically. Yeah. And I've been writing about it quite a lot recently for book chapters, my thesis, journal papers. So yeah, it's kind of taken on a life of its own.
You presented it at a conference in America, I think.
Yes, yeah, good, well remembered.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got that it got a really nice positive response at that conference as well. I think just because it's something quite simple, it's quite easy for people to understand and get their head around. If other people wanted to do it, they could do it quite easily. It's not a deeply kind of complex action that is kind of outside of ordinary people's possibilities and understanding. It's quite relatable.
It's also very decorative. So
Yep.
yeah, that kind of sort of puts us into. There was a new academic study thesis report about cost per wear,
Yes.
which kind of is sort of the other side of the wear tally, where I think they're asking makers to estimate a cost per wear of garments made.
I've just brought it up on my screen. It is I think it's it's an academic paper. It's open access, so anyone can read it. You don't need to be part of a university to read it, which is refreshing, which is nice, and which is how a lot of academic research seems to be going, which is a really good thing. So it's by Lisa Ekman and Lucia Reich. So it's all about how communicating cost per wear influences consumer preference for clothing. So I think it is about shopping, consuming clothes. I've not read the whole thing from start to finish yet, but yeah, depending how it's done, I think that could be a really great way of communicating with customers in quite a positive way, because it's almost a kind of how this could benefit you financially kind of communication. I was thinking about it the other day and thinking, when we go shopping for food, I don't know what it's like in Norway, but in the UK, a lot of supermarket food, you've got the price for the item or the packet, but then there will also be a price maybe per kilo or per 100
Yeah.
grams or per piece that is in the packet, which gives you a much better understanding of how much it costs each time you consume that thing, but also enables you to compare prices a lot more easily.
Yeah.
Which I think those two things could also be said of cost per wearing clothes as well.
So would that be a way to estimate before purchase, say how many times would you be able to wear this pair of trousers, or a way after you've purchased it that by the time you throw it away you might have worn it 200 days?
I think I think both. So just when you're on the point of thinking, am I going to buy this item or not, it gives you that extra bit of information for you to compare brands, maybe compare items within brands, and think more about how often you're likely to use that item. But then also, does it also encourage a bit of ongoing kind of interest and interaction with our clothes? Could it encourage people to think, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll keep a note of how often I use this garment so that I can see if I do achieve that price that I was given on the label, or whether, I wear it even more and then it works out even cheaper. And would it make people think a bit more about, well, on the label it said that if I wore this 20 times it would cost me X. I've only worn it twice and now I'm thinking I don't want to keep it anymore.
Yeah.
So how, am I, what does that mean financially? Might it make people stop and think a bit more? It's interesting.
It's interesting. I can't help thinking that it's horribly complicated as well, because I recall, as a comparison, I remember many years ago I was shopping for a new sofa and I had 4 small children at the time, and I was very obsessed by these Martindale scores on the fabric on the sofa,
Oh yeah.
because I wanted as high as possible. But this was a standardized test, so I knew that I was getting a suitably rugged sofa. But you don't really have the same for clothes. So if you're comparing, say, stretchy denim jeans, I mean, how would you estimate how many times those could be worn?
Yeah, I mean,
Depending on how the people wear it, what the person's like. I mean, I take super care of my stuff. I know people who, who will wear out a pair in an afternoon.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I agree. It could easily get really complicated, but I think a simplified approach could be taken, because I think I think because fashion is, at its essence, is it's supposed to be about fun and playfulness and creativity. So, to what point are people willing to take notice of that kind of information? And if it is quite complex, would it make people just pay no attention to it whatsoever? Whereas if it's a simplified version,
no.
does it stand more of a chance of engaging people in that thought process? I mean, I've kind of read studies where people have worked with sort of members of the public, participants, and tried to offer people kind of a kind of education. So offering sewing skills and basic skills for kind of adapting, repairing, taking pet care of clothes, making clothes. And I think it's not universally successful. I think it, definitely among some people, there is a bit of a resistance to that idea of kind of re-education, shall we call it.
No.
And also, if you're talking about people making their clothes from scratch, and Amy Twigger Holroyd found this in her, I think it was her PhD research, which she turned into a book called Folk Fashion, that it takes a long time for a person's sewing skills to get to a stage where they can make something that they're actually happy to wear. Yeah, you could make an item, an object, a textile, sort of, maybe you could call it an example of a garment, but people might not necessarily then want to wear it, because we wear clothes for so many different reasons, don't we? And I saw that a lot when I was teaching people how to make and adapt and repair clothes before I started my PhD. It's almost like people are learning another language. They've got to start to understand fabrics and what they can do and what they can't do, and then, you know, not only how easy or difficult or what they're like to work with as a maker, but then what are they like to actually have on your body as a wearer, can be quite different things. So I think for your kind of average, ordinary wearer of clothes that doesn't necessarily have any kind of textile or sewing related skills, a kind of simplified version of that cost per wear probably is the way to go. But I agree with you, it could very easily get really, really complicated. And I
I
would
mean,
be the first person that would like overanalyze that and kind of get paralysis of analysis and just take it too far.
but it would be good if, say, a fast fashion maker puts a big label on the garment and says "single use only, good for one Saturday night," or
It'd be more honest, wouldn't it?
it would be honest. But then you might have some garment that this is a garment that is good, whatever the fashion dictates. So you may get a lot of use out of it, which kind
It,
of implies that fashion is really a large part of the problem.
yeah, I agree. But also, it's people. Well, yeah, kind of people and individual actions, playing into that problem. I don't think people are solely responsible. I think industry has a lot to answer for. But Now, where was I? I've completely lost my train of thought with that. Where were I going? Um, no, that's gone.
Cost,
What?
cost per use, something related to.
Oh yeah, when we were talking about fast fashion retailers being a bit more honest,
Yeah,
saying only good, only
yeah,
suitable for one wear. You then bring human nature and individuals and people into that, and that description might be the case for perhaps maybe the majority, but what about that one person that for whatever reason really loves that item of clothing, either it was bought with their first pay packet or bought for them as a gift by someone, or that one night out when they wore it that they thought would be the only night out they would wear it. They had the most amazing time and something amazing happened. So then that garment is kind of wrapped up in an amazing memory and experience. So then it could potentially take on a whole different meaning and purpose. Um, so
it
yeah,
could happen.
it
It
could,
just
it could, and it does.
could. Yeah.
I'm no angel. I've bought fast fashion in my past, um, and I can remember one particular dress that I had from Henny's. I would have bought that in about 1998, 99, while I was doing my degree. And, you know, uh, it would have been polyester and elastane, pretty nasty fabric, but just had a really nice print on it, really nice colours, just happened to fit me perfectly, was really, really versatile. I could wear it in lots and lots of different ways. And I loved that dress. And I probably only parted with that dress maybe 5, 6 years ago. I easily had that dress for 20 years. So it's hard to predict. And I think the counter applies as well. So if you've got a company or a brand or designer putting lots and lots of thought and effort into producing a garment in the best way possible from the best materials, and it has maybe quite a high price tag that reflects the amount of effort and work that's gone into it and the quality of it, and maybe the limited numbers that it's produced in, but there's no guarantee that whoever's hands that garment ends up in, that they're going to treat it in the way that that designer or that whole process intended, you know.
I'd like to take one little step back to the actual making of the garment and how can we tell whether it is actually good. I mean, we might, I think all the sort of buy better, buy less, what people mostly make of that is that buy more expensive.
Yeah.
But even if you sort of buy an expensive garment, how do you know it's really good? Because I mean, I wander around and I'm the guy who's sort of always
Yeah.
turning garments inside out, looking at the tags, and then I mean, expensive stuff is not well made, from what I can tell, and the fibre mix is awful. I mean, for people who aren't that informed, I mean, how can they even know? It might be super
No,
expensive. They think it's good.
it's a really good point, and it's become quite relevant over the last few years as well. So a lot of the practices that fast fashion brands have used, it's been exposed in the last few years that some luxury brands have been doing similar things, but just then ending up with a much bigger profit by charging the kind of sort of the prices that luxury brands can charge. And I think the only answer to that your question of how do people know, that's material, it's material knowledge, isn't it, which a lot of
Yeah.
us have lost. um
And that's even if we can trust what they put on their labels.
True, but then I think if you've got good material knowledge, I think sometimes you can see past what is on labels.
It's not. I mean, we when we're out and about, we often have this little game where we'll spot some knitwear. And, is it polyester or is it wool? If you can spot that on 10 paces, really good. But I mean, sometimes polyester can look very like wool.
Yeah. And it's only when it's been worn a bit that you can tell, or if you actually put it on and then you'll feel that either you're getting way too hot and sweaty or you're freezing cold, then you realise that it's not actually wool.
Yeah.
But
At which point you've already shelled
yeah,
out your hard earned
exactly,
and
exactly. Which is why I think it's so important that a lot of pressure is put on the industry, because there's only so much individuals can do. Yeah, we're responsible for our own actions and our own consumption patterns and our own actions that we take with things we don't want to keep anymore. But above that, there's a lot that we have no control over, that we're maybe not even being given the full information. um
that brings us on to well, the discarding of fabrics. That brings us on to the massive topic now of just what does happen to them, and things have changed a bit since we last spoke. In Norway, there was a new law that says that all textiles must be recycled now, which has kind of caused a bit of confusion and discussion because there isn't really any way to recycle it all.
yeah.
There is a recycling factory not far from me. I'm not quite sure what they're doing, but I think they are basically downcycling some
Yeah.
stuff.
Mm.
But really, the rest of the waste is being shipped off as before to countries that are willing to accept it.
Of which I think there are fewer and fewer.
Yeah, I mean, who really wants to have mountains of textile waste?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like that's got to be quite hard to sell. Um, yeah, when you told me about the new law in Norway, that would have been, that's my first kind of reaction is, oh, okay, so suddenly has Norway developed brilliant kind of textile recycling technology that they're not telling the rest of us about.
No, it's, yeah, imagine.
Yeah, I mean, in the UK, I think we've spoken a bit about this, haven't we? Do you have these incinerators that are kind of euphemistically called energy recovery facilities?
We do, and I think that's basically how plastics in general are recycled.
Mm.
And I do recall some years ago there was talk about plastics for recycling, and they discovered that all these plastics were actually ending up in Eastern Europe and being incinerated at a factory that made cement. So they used it for the energy, but it was transported all the way from Norway through Europe just to be burnt there.
That's crazy, isn't it? And that's a big part of this, is the kind of yeah, the transporting and moving around of waste just seems completely mad. Um, but yeah, he in the UK, we've got one in Sheffield, is a big incinerator called an energy recovery facility, and it powers a heat network for kind of part of the centre of town. Um, but the air quality around that incinerator is not great. Which, of course, it wouldn't be, would it? Because it's incinerating all kinds of crap. And
They need some sort of technology to ensure it burns clean and that the fumes are treated in some way. But
well, yeah, and in theory, but I read quite an interesting piece on the BBC website where they did an investigation into uh, some of them, and yeah, that measured the air quality, and it wasn't really what it should have been.
that makes me so sad. I mean, that's the one way we can sort of take care of this problematic material is burn it and at least get some energy back out of it. But if we're then polluting everywhere around it, I don't know. It
Because
just
it's, I mean, essentially, I mean, if you, I think a lot of these waste textiles are ending up in them, and as we know, there's more and more polyester in textiles, and probably even more in the kind of textiles that end up on that route. So it is effectively kind of burning oil.
yeah.
So and yeah, it's just it you know, like I said a while ago, it's just so complicated, and there are so many people involved and so many processes involved, and um you know, we don't want this stuff going in landfill, do we? And landfill
No.
taxes in UK have gone up and up and up quite steeply, which is doing what it's intended to in discouraging sending waste to landfill. But then what do we do with it? It, you know, it doesn't just magically disappear.
I do often wonder at the irony of clothes that cost almost nothing will be shipped from the other side of the world. I mean, they'll travel almost infinite distances, and then after a brief use, they're off travelling also infinite distances when they're just waste worth nothing.
Yeah, well, in the reverse direction, isn't it? It's like this kind of big sort of a circular route where they come out round to here, briefly stay, go round and back again. And actually, yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? That, like you've just said, they're almost worthless. They're almost kind of, you know, the cost of them is so low, but yet the kind of energy and infrastructure and processes that are going into moving them around the world are vast. So it just, yeah, I mean, I'm not an economist, um, but it just makes me think. So, how is the kind of where's the money in that? Where's the money coming from in that? If the product itself is so low in value financially, what's
I think it
funding
must
it?
be. I think it must be the inverse, really, here, where the cost of actually doing something proper with them costs so much that it's cheaper to just ship them off.
Mm, it's yeah, yeah. It sometimes makes me want to just put my head in my hands and just weep. But
Yeah,
let's
because
not.
there were also developments in the. I mean, you've been monitoring the local charity shop industry, which is a very good indicator of what's happening, sort of
Yeah,
on ground level.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's becoming visible to um yeah, general public. So my local charity shop, um, the sign went up in their window, which prompted the start of the whole thing that culminated in me sitting on top of 2 tons of textile waste in a local processing um, uh, depot. Um, but yeah, the people. So basically, what happens in charity shops, again, I'm only aware of what happens in the UK, but I can, you know, I assume it's not dissimilar in other places. That the 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 clothes that don't sell in the charity shop or at that first sort are deemed not good enough to be sold in the charity shop. So maybe they're stained, they're damaged. They don't. I learned on my last visit to that sorting facility, labels are very important. So garments that don't have labels on, they can't. They're deemed unsellable. Um, so charities have relationships with an industry that will come and collect them and give the charity shop a small payment. And that is effectively what then is the fuel for this kind of, you know, big blob that we don't know what's happening to it and where it's going. And it's just
Yeah.
getting more and more difficult to move it places and to get people to other countries to accept it or to know what to do with it, because understandably fewer and fewer people want it, yet this blob is growing and getting bigger and bigger because there is more and more clothing and textile waste. And so the price that industry is able to pay charities to come and take it away is kind of going down and down and down. So yeah, my one of my local charity shops a couple of times in the past year, 18 months, has had to put signs up saying that they can't take any more, or can you please only give them decent quality stuff so that it's
Yeah.
clean, it's not damaged, it's got a label. Essentially just ask yourself, would you want to be given this? It really is what it boils down to. Because if they can't get that that waste, or as it's called, rag, collected, then suddenly the charity shop, actually becomes waste, and it has to go in that charity shop's waste bin, or waste disposal. And as a business, they get charged to have their waste collected, unlike, well, I suppose residents, we still do, but that's through our council tax, but it's a separate charge for businesses, I think, to have their waste collected. So what had been a small source of income suddenly is flipped and becomes a cost for a charity
Yeah.
shop that they didn't have before. So yeah, it's really, really difficult for charity shops. So I think it's really important to get that message out to people that charity shops really do need your donations, but they really do need decent donations.
Yeah.
Don't give them your socks with holes in, or your stained underwear, or your waterproof coat that's got a lining that's disintegrating, which I've seen all of them things.
Gosh, I mean, who'd give away underwear? That just sounds weird, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was actually the case in Norway, because what they said after the new law came into effect was that they wanted everything, all textiles, even broken whatever. And the effect of that was that the few charities we have in Norway who do collect clothes were absolutely swamped.
Yeah, I bet.
And of course, so much of it was just low-grade rubbish, so they just could not cope with sorting it. So the Salvation Army was talking about closing shops and connection points, because it's just not viable any longer. And I think I saw a UK charity, they were talking about closing 168 shops because there just wasn't any money in it longer.
Yeah, it's tricky because I think they get preferential or kind of heavily discounted business rates, but they've still got a lot of other overheads to operate a bricks and mortar shop. There's fuel, insurance, staff
Shop
costs.
manager.
Sorry?
A shop manager. I mean, a lot of the staff is volunteers.
Yeah. I mean, a
normally.
lot of volunteers, but some people are paid.
Mm.
So yeah, it's difficult, and they need our support, I think, more than ever.
It's strange when legislation that is well meant becomes sort of the opposite. It just shows how fragile the entire system is,
Mm,
and you start messing about at one end, and it just completely.
it's consequences. Yeah, there's always
Yeah.
consequences, aren't there?
So yeah, charity shops, waste. Good lord, this is a bleak one.
I know.
I was about to now segue into to my sort of conspiracy corner,
Don't, please don't.
and I don't know whether to say anything or not. But yeah, I'll mention it because I don't want to sort of spread conspiracies. But I have been noticing of late that there have been more and more posts on social media, especially on Threads, but also Blue Sky, which are the two sort of old Twitter alternatives.
Hmm.
But these sort of strange little posts, but they're very much pro polyester,
Mm,
in kind of the same way that you'd see posts promoting certain political meanings or leanings. Like this one, I'm so tired of this demonization of polyester. It's really just another avenue of recycled internet think. As a person with a background in textile development and marketing, most people don't know enough, blah, 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 blah. But really, the people posting these messages don't seem to have any sort of background. So it just seems like sort of paid
mm,
pro messages going out to people who follow them. And I also saw one where a guy has this, he doesn't have any evidence for it, but has a weird feeling the anti polyester movement is about to become a right wing pipeline where the natural fibre people are joining into the same people who, all the, say, health stuff, all these weird wellness trends and all this.
mm, mm.
And it's just like, hang on, can we
Yeah,
just sort of stick to facts?
that's a bit of a strange leap. That a bit of a leap to connect up all them things. Yeah, you've mentioned this to me, Nick, and so I'm kind of now a bit more, um, I suppose, alert to it, um, and have been noticing it a bit more since we've spoke about it. But I don't use Threads and Blue Sky an awful lot. I mean, I'm on both, but I don't kind of actively use them. I don't use Twitter at all. I haven't deleted my account because I didn't want someone else taking that handle and abusing it. So it's just kind of like effectively a holding account. I don't use it at all. Um,
The same here. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I suppose them two platforms, Blue Sky and Threads, lend themselves a bit more to kind of discussion, maybe, than Instagram does. I tend to stick on uh, Instagram and the glorious LinkedIn,
God.
um, just because I don't want various social media platforms eating up all of my time. So
That's a fair point.
yeah, I just stick to them too. Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? So yeah, I mean, I have seen a bit of this on Instagram. Um, I don't know. I think it's just another reflection of that lack of material knowledge that people have in general now. Um, I wonder how many people really understand where polyester comes from, how long it lasts, what the options are for doing with it once you've finished with it. Um, you know, why your gym gear ends up really smelly after not very long. It's all to do with the fibres that are in, that the fabric's made from. Um, it's like a similar thing. We've also had conversations about recycled wool and the concept of washable wool and things like that. There's a lot. It feels
Yes.
like there's a lot of I don't know. I kind of want to say hidden, but that feels a bit too accusatory.
It would be great if everyone could just agree on what the facts are, and then we could sort of work from that. Because you
Yeah,
mentioned the recycle wool, because there was one of the rather large sort of sustainable Instagrammers who was promoting recycled wool sweaters with, I think it was 20% nylon, because the brand said that you had to have nylon in it to make the wool stronger. And
which is
she just
I
accepted
feel is
that.
a valid argument for socks,
Mm,
possibly. I don't I don't see that as a valid argument for just a regular, ordinary use jumper. Really, and and like we said, what are the implications then for being able to kind of reuse, recycle that product at the end of its life? If it's just 100% wool, you can do that. You can even compost it. But as soon as you put nylon in it, can't do that.
no. I do also wonder, I mean, say wool, I mean, wool is rather plentiful.
Yeah,
We're not short of wool.
no, especially in UK. I mean, I think it's starting to. I think the tide is starting to turn a bit on wool in the UK, but for a long, long time, farmers had to pay to get fleeces taken away, which just like is the height of madness to me and to a lot of people, not just me. Um, have you ever been to Halifax?
I have. That's where the folly is. Is it?
Well,
There's a folly in
there's
Halifax.
a place called the Peace Hall in
I have
Halifax.
not. I have not been there. I think I have
Okay,
sort of driven
well,
through.
next time you're in UK, if you can, have a trip to Halifax. And in Halifax, there's a place called the Peace Hall, built in I think 1700s, and it is just the most amazing place. Uh, Absolutely vast, enormous, built in a kind of circular or oval structure, um, kind of buildings around the periphery with, I think, two or three floors, and then this enormous open space in the middle where I think now they often have open air concerts and events and various stuff. But a massive, massive, huge structure built beautifully, beautiful staircases inside to go up to all these different floors, like colonnaded walkways and stuff. And that's where the wool traders used to go and trade. So that whole place was built on wool. And then 200 years, 300 years later, farmers have to pay someone to take it away. That it's like madness. Madness. That feels to me like the kind of a real, in a nutshell, um, picture of, yeah, of how devalued textiles as generally have become. That could happen.
Yeah, because I was talking to quite a new Norwegian brand recently. They're called Tingvoll Ull, and they do the whole wool processing in Norway, which I wasn't aware that we weren't doing that in Norway, because there are wool products made in Norway, but the Norwegian wool is shipped to the UK to be washed before coming back to Norway to be processed further. And it's like,
Oh my god, who thought that was a good idea. And there's not that much in UK.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, no wonder things are expensive
Yeah. Yeah.
if you're having to do stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, we got a this is a slight kind of going off at a little bit of a tangent, but it is wool related. We got a wool duvet recently, which has been a complete revelation for me, and I absolutely love it. But the company it came from has lots of information on their website about the raw material, how it's processed, how they then make it into products, and how to look after it. Some background information about why it's a really good material to use for duvets, all the rest of it. But yeah, that is all kind of it's wool from UK sheep. It's processed in the UK. The duvets are made in the UK. But in that, I think they said that there were two. Now there was a process. Was it washing? It was either washing. Was it carding? It was one of those early processes in processing wool. And they said there's only two places left in the UK that has the equipment to do it anymore. So at least it's staying in UK, but still, crazy.
It is. I mean, so much of this basic skill and equipment has been lost.
Yeah,
And you hear about fabrics being sent from the mill in the UK over to Lithuania, say, to be processed and then back. It's crazy how much stuff is just travelling around all the time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a lot to be said for. I mean, there's a lot to be said for kind of specialists and centres of excellence and people being specialists at particular things. But it feels to me like maybe that's how a lot of this fragmentation maybe began. But I think now it's just all about chasing cost, isn't it? It's chasing the lowest processing cost, which inevitably usually means lowest wage costs. So where people and human labour is the cheapest that's what the textile industry often seems to chase.
I found it very interesting what these guys in Norway are doing now, because everything is done locally. But there's quite a strong artisanal knitting yarn industry in Norway. Lots of small makers of knitting wool, which is all mostly 100% wool or 100% natural fibres. But they have people they use, and so it's just a case really of putting together all these various processes that are pretty much local to them, and then voila, they're making very locally made wool jumpers.
That I bet are beautiful as well.
They are very nice, and they're made on sort of high-tech Japanese knitting machines, because they looked out and there was a Japanese guy who was a specialist in it, who moved nearby and could then support these machines locally.
Brilliant.
So yes, I mean, these things are possible if you just sort of lift your eyes away from your spreadsheets and trying to make things as cheaply as possible.
Yeah. And that's a really good example of kind of specialisms, isn't it? And kind of specialist knowledge and connecting up specialists in different areas, but keeping it in the same geographical area.
Yeah. Now, there was one thing I wanted to talk to you a bit about. There was an article in the Financial Times recently about how the British fashion industry is embracing Britishness and heritage brands again. Yeah. That's why I dug out this one in the background here.
Okay,
it's the only Barber I have left, but it's an old one. It's from the 90s, I think, an old border. Because Barber was one of the brands that was sort of really put forward as sort of heritage British company. but Barber don't really make anything much in the UK any longer.
I
So,
know. I
I
think they
mean,
still have a factory, don't they? Is it in South Shields?
there is one factory in South Shields, and they make two types of jacket.
Yeah, yeah,
But they also, as I've heard, there's another 4 or 5 UK factories that support them in making those jackets. I mean, Barber is a massive operation, and
yeah,
that South Shields factory is tiny.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But then I mean, they Barber is a lifestyle
yeah,
brand, a
yeah,
huge fashion brand, and
yeah.
I mean, most everything is made in low cost countries. But is this a sign of the times? Heritage makers, and I mean, there are much more relevant makers in the UK to pull forth. I think. I mean, there is stuff made in the UK.
I wonder if it's another example of a kind of sort of an abuse of language, that this heritage. If you attach that to something, does that implant an idea in consumers' minds that, oh, heritage British, oh, okay, so it must, that means they're making it in the UK. You can just, is it a tactic? I don't know. I'm just kind of like, thinking aloud. Using language like that, does it just enable people who don't have a lot of specialist knowledge to make connections and assumptions and form their own ideas of a brand and what it is they're actually buying? Maybe, I don't know.
I suppose it's sort of they're trying to sell a whole lifestyle
Mm.
of British class, posh,
Yeah,
retro something.
yeah. It's selling the kind of country estate, stately home, outdoors, rugged lifestyle. Uh, you know, yeah, that put on this coat, and that's what you become.
Yeah, I
I've
don't know
got
if it's.
I've got barber coats, and that's not how I spend my time. I've not magically been transformed to Lady of the Manor.
Yeah, mine has a massive poaching pocket, so that's how I'd be spending my time.
Yeah, I know most of them do, don't they? And usually mine are just full of keys and purses and phones. So
And that doggy poo bag you forgot to put in the bin
yeah, nice.
has happened. Yes, yes.
But yeah, it's it's a lot about stories. It's interesting because I'm quite interested in stories and narratives in clothes and fashion, but I'm interested in real life, personal, authentic stories and narratives connected to clothes that connect people with their clothes. Um, and it feels to me, and it's not a new thing, it's been done for a long time, hasn't it? That stories have long been used in fashion as a well, and in most of the products, I suppose now, as a way of as a marketing tool. Um, but I think a lot of my research and some of the things that I've been doing with participants and that I'm doing, in my own kind of creative practice, I'm trying to kind of push back against that and, remind myself and anyone that wants to listen to me and my research participants that we have our own narratives and stories that often are way more meaningful and way more relatable than the stories that were kind of fed by brands, where we try and is it part of the kind of way that often clothes disappoint people? We're told the story of a brand it makes us buy the product. Surprisingly, our life doesn't magically transform into the story that we've been told, and therefore
Oh,
we're a bit disappointed with that garment that we've invested some money in that we thought was going to be the thing, and so it's discarded and on to the next thing. And if we were perhaps slowing down and paying a bit more attention to more personal, authentic stories and narratives that actually are relevant and actually are real, could that be a way of changing how people interact with their clothes? I don't know. It's something that I think about a lot. Like kind of
I sort of
almost
get
using fashion's tactics kind of against itself in a way.
I sort of get a sort of inkling here that along that way you're mentioning now, there might be a more positive story.
This is what
Because a lot of what we
I'm
talk about,
desperate
I
to
mean,
get at.
it's so depressing. I mean, all
Yeah.
this talk about polyester and fast fashion, it's just, oh God. I mean, you sort of think, could I maybe see a life without clothes? Can I just avoid all this? Can I just wear a sack, please? I can't engage in this anymore. But
But
if there was
yeah,
a way to turn it into something more positive,
yeah.
and I mean, there's one gang of mostly guys which comes to mind here, the denim guys, who will wear a pair of jeans for a year to make it as faded, as worn out as possible.
Mm.
I mean, personally, I find it a bit ridiculous, but I mean, as long as it brings them joy. But it is actually, if you look upon it from a sort of environmental way, it's brilliant because they're wearing the same pair of trousers for a whole year.
Yeah, and I love that kind of like denim nerd approach to really high quality denim and really high quality denim clothing. I think it's I'm fairly sure it was Hyatt Denim, who I think are based in Wales, and I think they get customers sending them photographs of wear patterns on their, that customers send in of wear patterns on jeans and things that they've bought from Hyatt Denim, and I love that. I think that is just such a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Celebrating these individual kind of patterns of wear that have occurred on their items. And I think they recently posted a label of, I think, I hope I'm not misremembering this, but I think it was a label on a pair of their jeans, because I think they also do repairs, and it's handwritten on the label, the date and the repair. And so, then you've got these garments with this kind of handwritten log of what's happened to them over time. And that for me that feels to me a much a much more nourishing, fulfilling, positive way to go with clothing. And that feels to me, that's how I would like clothing to be. That's how I would like fashion to be. I mean, fashion, again, it's another word, isn't it? It's another one of these words that kind of slightly makes me bristle a little bit. Um,
Well, yes. I mean, it is a major source of what the sort of problems we are in.
yeah, yeah. But could there be a better way of doing it? Has it just lost its way a bit? And can we, you know, in future, are we going to be able to kind of recapture the better parts of it and the kind of, the better, the kind of the more, the real, the kind of, I don't know.
I think once you start saying that you want to sort of get rid of fashion, then people think, oh, you want us to live in North Korea, so we all have the same uniforms.
Yeah, no,
But
I'm
I
not.
mean, that's the sort
Yeah,
of polarized binary way
exactly.
of thinking.
Yeah,
But I mean, there must be ways of being creative and making nice things without it being sort of immediately. You've almost only bought it and it's sort of out of fashion.
yeah,
I mean, I think that's just marketing, and I think
yeah,
really the American car industry discovered this in the 50s,
yeah,
that you had to make each new model year different so that people wanted the new one and didn't want
yeah,
the old one.
yeah,
So clearly, it's a tactic that works.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think there is a better way of doing fashion. Embrace, essentially, it's creative. It's about people. It's about connection. It's about identity. It's about storytelling. All wonderful, great, positive things. So we just need to kind of recapture that side of it, which I think we can do. But I think, yeah, it's it's a lot of work involved, I think. But I've mentioned her before, but Amy Twigger Holroyd's Fashion Fictions project uh, was a lot about this, about
Yeah.
how can it be different? How can we do things differently? And asking, what if this? What if we did that? What if this was different? How about if we tried that? And just kind of speculating and wondering and imagining how things could be different. Because if you can't
Mm.
imagine something, then how can you get there? You've got to be able to imagine it to start with. Um, so I think we need uh, that injection of positivity massively. And essentially, I do think that that is what people, you know, the public consumers respond to. I don't think that, even though all that stuff we talked about at the beginning is all completely relevant and really important, um, I just think we've got to be careful about where that message goes out and how it's framed, because too much negativity switches people off, and I think it can almost sometimes have the opposite effect, that people just are like, right, I'm going to tune out of that. I'm not going to listen to anything about that now. I'm
Mm.
just going to behave how I want to behave. And there's been studies, older studies and current studies, that have um, demonstrated that. And you only have to kind of look at history and culture. I mean, I really don't believe that there can possibly be anyone uh, in the global north, maybe also in the global south as well. Um, Maybe I'm being a bit arrogant there in saying that. Anyone, I don't believe there's anyone that can claim that they don't know, or they've not heard anything negative about the fashion industry, and how damaging it is for people and the planet. That message is out there. It's been out there since the 90s, since
Yeah.
Nike were kind of using children to make trainers, and the Gap were pulled up on their practices. We've been talking about it for such a long time, decades, yet here we are. It's kind of worse than ever.
Yeah. I, I don't know. I think I might disagree with that, because I gave a talk in Oslo a few months ago about clothes,
Mm,
good and bad.
mm.
And I had so many people come over to me afterwards and say they had no idea about the stuff I'd been talking about before. And it was like, really?
Maybe not the specifics, maybe not like the kind of nitty gritty detail, perhaps, but generally, on
Hmm.
the whole, as a general impression, I just cannot believe anyone that would say to me, Oh yeah, I think fashion is generally a really, really good thing, and it's having a really positive effect on the planet and all people that are living on the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, if someone said that to me, I would just wonder what planet they're being beamed down from.
Well, I'd say welcome to social media because that's the sort of oblivious stuff you find all the time.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit naive in thinking that, but it just does feel like we've been talking about it for a long time. We've talked about it for a long time in a negative, in it talked about the problems in a negative way, and it doesn't really seem to have changed anything.
No. If we were going to sort of turn it on the head and try to talk about it in a positive way, I mean, does anything come to mind? I mean, it's all well and good
The
saying you have to
little,
stop being negative, but if the opposite is to be
yeah,
silent, I mean, I don't know.
the little pockets of creativity and um yeah, and I mean, there's so much creativity and uh amazing skill
Yeah.
involved in making beautiful clothes, and there always has been, and surely we don't want to lose that. And
No. How can we lose the bad stuff, though? Or ignore it?
well,
Or.
you know, I, I
It's
do,
tricky.
I do think, some governments need to put their big boy and big girl pants on and start standing up to the fashion industry. I mean,
That's been.
the problem is, or the advantage that it's got, is that it is this tangled, interconnected global industry. So to
Yeah.
really truly change everything, change anything on a meaningful level, there's got to be kind of coordinated, agreed action internationally. And as we can see with everything that's going on in the world right now, that is quite difficult.
Yeah.
That is, when you let an industry kind of sprawl and be so kind of global and interconnected, and yeah, it's, you've got laws in one country, then you've got laws in another country, then it needs to be kind of a coordinated agreement.
But France have been making some moves, haven't
Yeah,
they? Sort of
yeah,
against the Chinese ultra fast fashion companies.
yeah. But
If
that
others
is,
would sort of follow on a bit, get something going, might change a bit.
well, we've got to just hope so, haven't we? And I think it's kind of a lot of it. I think as well is about social norms and making some, trying to find ways to make some behaviours just socially unacceptable. Um,
In a positive way.
well, rather than people posting on social media their hauls of crap that they've had delivered from whichever fast fashion brand,
Hmm.
you know, posting, and there are people doing this. I kind of acknowledge that there are people doing this. That we're posting videos and content about garments that have been in our lives for a long time, or very, very kind of beautifully locally made crafted garments, or garments that we've made ourselves, or like I'm doing it on a very small scale and kind of posting about my wearing tally and the garments that I've found that I've been wearing a lot, and what are they, and look at how the stitches are collecting and growing, and it's the kind of the complete antithesis of a fast fashion, a box of fast fashion items. It feels like they're kind of a positive, a more positive way of posting about fashion and clothes. But how you make one socially more acceptable than the other, I don't know. I'm not a behavioural psychologist, unfortunately.
I'd love to make more content where I talk to people about their favourite, cherished clothes. The one niggling worry there is that will make people like my kind of guys aware of more stuff that they desperately will want.
Okay.
Because there's nothing like having someone speak warmly about, say, an old jacket to get a bunch of guys going, oh, yeah, I should have one of those.
Okay.
And then off again. And there was this recent article about how people shopping second-hand and vintage display similar sort of buy patterns as those that go after fast fashion. So if you have that compulsion to buy lots of stuff, you'll buy lots of stuff, whichever market you're looking in.
Yeah, that's a really interesting paper, and that's another open access one. Actually, I'm looking at it now, so it's great that the cost per wear one and this one are both, peer reviewed, academic journal papers. And they're both open access, so anyone can read them. So that one is by, and again, I may mispronounce their names, but Maital Mizrachi and Ori Sharon. So that one is on nature.com. Secondhand fashion consumers exhibit fast fashion behaviours despite sustainability narratives.
I'll put the links to these in the show notes so people can find them.
Because they're really, I can send you them if you can't find them. They're really, really good reading. And that one, displaying fast fashion behaviours despite sustainability narratives. So a lot of the people in that study had quite high environmental awareness and knowledge, and yet despite that were behaving in a way that would not fall into a kind of, for want of a better word, sustainable consumption of fashion.
But is the problem in that respect that they will buy a lot of, say, second-hand or vintage clothes, or that they discard them after use? I'm not sure I see the problem of them having them at home in their personal collection, their little hoard of nice stuff.
Curated collection. I think that's what your guys do, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Like an art. But then again, is that a terrible thing? Because that is treating.
I don't see the problem there.
But there's a kind of a valorizing of the pieces, and it being a serious collection, and the collection as a whole and the pieces that form it being precious and valued and important.
To me, it's a way.
Churn, and I think that paper does talk about that it's not only the kind of high rate of acquisition, but it's then the high churn rate. So they're kind of coming in and going out quite quickly. And that's just all down to that kind of perceived need for novelty.
I know when I first discovered charity shops over here about 16 years ago, I would go several times a week and I'd buy a ton of stuff. And I didn't really think of it as a problem until I had an awful lot of stuff. And then I had to start getting, I mean, mostly giving it back again.
Yeah.
But then again, there wasn't really a huge cost involved or anything, but it was just meaningless. But it was just because I discovered that, wow, you can get all these sort of brand name stuff cheap, regardless of really whether it fit or not. So I think there are ways to differentiate, and there are levels here. But if you're going sort of thrift shopping and coming home with a sack full of stuff every week, and then basically just donating it again the week after, I think that is more of a problem than whether you have a collection.
Yeah.
I'd certainly like to think that was less of a problem.
Yeah, because it's that perceived value that you're placing on things, isn't it? And how,
Because if you're paying nothing for it, I mean, it does sort of have zero value, and I don't know, maybe whatever. It's a big, complicated discussion.
Yes, it is, and because it's so wrapped up in self-expression, identity, belonging. Yeah, yes. How can you legitimately tell people how they should think about them things, and how they should behave around them things, and how they should act out their values in those kind of areas? Yeah, like you said, you don't want to sort of suddenly be like, let's all pretend that we live in North Korea. Everyone, we tell you what to wear, we all wear the same thing. It's not the point, is it?
Well, I don't think you'll get many people to join
No.
to join your conversion group.
I don't. And I wouldn't. I don't think it's. Yeah.
There are definitely no clear-cut answers, but I think we can agree that whichever way we go, it has to be done in a joyous and positive way.
Yeah.
That way we'll get more people to join.
Find the joy again, and the meaning, and the connection to things. Because I do wonder how, there have been studies around that kind of churn of buying fast fashion, and how that affects people's mental health. Kind of how, because are people shopping? What are people's motivations for shopping? And, or if, it's how you feel about yourself, how you feel about how you look. It's,
like you were saying, the promise of what something new will give you. And a lot of the shopping platforms now are sort of gamified so that to want you to buy more and more, and you can get greater discounts and greater pleasure. And
it's, God, what's that? It's a really old-fashioned phrase. Marry in haste, repent at leisure. Is that a phrase?
That is an old saying, yes.
Yeah. And it's, it's kind of, you could say the same about shopping, That's what we're being encouraged to do. Kind of shop in haste.
See a lot of it now that it's, now that the sales are on. The ludicrous idea that we've just passed, around New Year, when all the winter sales start, because the shops have to start filling in their summer gear, which will be in the shops within a week or two now. It's... Please.
Fine if you're going on a summer holiday.
It is. I'm definitely not in the mood for buying shorts and T-shirts now, though. So if the industry could just sort of hang on a bit and have their sales, say, maybe in April, then, again, that's also contributing to the consumption.
Yeah. and that's driven by price, and it's kind of like, oh, you're having your sale at this time, therefore we must have our sale a little bit earlier to kind of beat yours. Oh, right, we must bring ours forward a little bit. And whatever, it's all about price, it's not going to be a great outcome.
No,
But
definitely not.
unfortunately, when we're all kind of strapped for cash at the moment, which a huge amount of people are, you can't, it's hard then to kind of point the finger at people for wanting to save a bit of money.
Yeah. Which is another sort of complicating parallel factor where,
Yep.
And there we go. I see we've come up to the time when you needed to pop along.
Well, I can't believe how quickly that's gone, Nick.
Oh, there you go. It's just that much fun. I will say that last time we had a lot of fun because we were both wearing overalls, and I did make the effort today, and I'm wearing another pair of overalls. But I'm quite a little bit disappointed to notice that you're not to be wearing overalls.
No dungarees. Although I am wearing my dad's cardi that I think I mentioned before.
I did notice the repairs and the colourful add-ons there.
Yes. Yeah. And it would have been originally a charity shop purchase. My dad did like to shop in charity shops. It's probably technically a fast fashion brand because it's a supermarket label.
Okay.
But very interestingly, it's a very high wool content cardigan, which I was quite surprised at when I looked at the label, given it's a fairly cheap supermarket brand. But it's a man's cardigan. So we've run out of time, unfortunately, for me to go down that road. But
I was just going to say that, I mean, even sort of cheap stuff used to be well made. I mean, old Marks and Spencer's shirts and stuff are still great.
Yeah.
I was going to point out the cardigan I've got under the barber at the back there, because that's a Norwegian one I found in a charity shop recently. Must be about 50 years old. It's still in perfect condition, 100% wool, proper.
Nice.
So, I mean, these old things were made properly. A lot of the problem is that new stuff isn't made properly.
Well, it goes back down to value, doesn't it? You know, sort of, valuing resources and wanting to minimise waste because the resources were precious and valuable.
And then it all went wrong. Okay, Wendy. Anything you'd sort of like to mention just in closing? Any wise words, old sayings, words of encouragement?
Oh, I don't know. It's difficult, isn't it? I feel like a lot of this stuff. There's a lot of negative stuff to talk about because there are a lot of problems, but I just don't want that to kind of make people switch off and think, oh God, same old kind of negative hectoring from Wendy. But honestly, it's not. I think we just need to not get caught up in the moment as much. Yeah, and I'm human, I do get sometimes kind of caught in the moment of things that I see online and, have that little demon in the back of my mind that says, oh, that's really nice. Maybe you need that. And one tactic I've learned is that I never respond to things like that now. I stop and I think and I question, and 99 times out of 100, when I stop and think about it and question it, I come to the conclusion, no, I don't need that thing.
I mean, I think a lot of it is just staying out of temptation by not following brands on social media, not allowing them to send you newsletters.
Yeah.
just not being open to the constant push of marketing.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know about it, you probably don't want it.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said for, we wanted some sayings and wise words. There's a lot to be said for ignorance is bliss. Maybe not when it comes to fibres and their properties and material knowledge, but when it comes to what the latest thing is and, when the latest sale starts, I'm all for a bit of ignorance on that.
And I did want to mention that Amy is coming on the pod soon to talk about the fashion
excellent
stories book. What
Fictions.
was it? Fashion fictions. Yeah.
Yeah.
So hopefully that will be some positive content, some more uplifting stuff for trying times.
Yes, it will be, definitely. That's, yes, an excellent guest.
Okay, Wendy, I'll let you get on with your day. So,
all right. Thanks, Nick. It's really nice to catch up with you again.
Likewise. And bye-bye for now.